Let me welcome to the show. We're going to talk tech through the Urban League's lens. Let's see what they're doing. Let me welcome to the show Executive Director of the National Urban League's Washington Bureau and Senior Vice President, Policy and Advocacy, Ms. Joy Chaney. Welcome.
Hi, Karen. How you doing?
I'm awesome. I am. I'm awesome. Welcome. And joining Joy with the joy is somebody that has a nice smile. He's joyful as well. Executive Director of the National Urban League's Latimer Digital Equity and Inclusion Project, which we're going to talk about as well. Let me welcome Mr. Edward Smitty Smith. Welcome.
How you doing, Karen?
I feel like I'm being Mike Shane. I feel like Smitty's coming in with like this rich depth. It's like a pot of like gumbo. Like your mic is like you got a microphone gumbo going on. Welcome. Maybe I should just hand this over to you. We seem to be having some technical difficulties. I think you should just finish the show with your great mic. All right. Joy Chaney, you know, we all know about the National Urban League, what you guys do. Mostly the report that comes out every year, which is the State of Black America. That's what you're most known for.
Yeah.
Has this tech thing been, how long has it been in existence?
Well, so it's been about a year in the works for the National Urban League to write this particular report. But the National Urban League has been talking about the digital divide for a long time. And 2 years ago, for those who read our State of Black America report, we did one on the digital divide and chronicled the digital equality index and found that not everyone was benefiting the same from this technological era.
And we saw that particularly during the pandemic when so many children had to learn remotely and didn't have access to the internet.
Correct.
Which sent so many of them back probably a couple of years we lost in our education. Now the education gap is going to even get wider. Okay. And I have seen that report. So you're absolutely correct. I also, before I get to Smitty, we were talking because today is the anniversary of George Floyd, of course, having his life snuffed out on film. We now know that was 9 minutes and 26 seconds, not 8:46. And I said a lot of organizations got a lot of money. I call it the George Floyd like apology check or George Floyd guilt check, white guilt check. Did the Urban League benefit nationally as well?
I wouldn't say we benefited. I think that there are companies who want to invest in organizations who are doing racial justice work, and we're certainly one of them. And we took that, and we made it turn back into the community and making sure that we are providing direct services. We have 91 affiliates across the nation. We're in 300 communities. We serve almost 2 million people per year in terms of direct services. It's an exciting time to be at the Urban League because we have our thumb, I think, on the pulse of the nation in terms, and certainly African American and urban communities, in terms of justice issues that matter to us, whether they're voting rights, policing justice, what's happening with George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Hopefully, we can get a little bit to that. And then also economic justice, what's happening with this infrastructure bill, and that includes what we're doing around broadband access. So, all things justice at the Urban League.
One more before I go to Mr. Smitty. Joy Chaney, how did you get into the Urban League? What was your entry point? What inspired you to come in and work with this venerable organization?
Absolutely. So, I'm out here in Florida. I'm from Orlando, Florida, out here with my family. And I'm going to be honest with you. My mother was a physician working in the community. My father was a lawyer. I've come from people who I would say are civil rights and human rights activists, even if they don't call themselves that, right? They serve their community through service. My mother practiced pediatrics, meeting people where they were for 40 plus years. Now she's turned the other way here because she doesn't want me to say the year number, but 40 plus years until she retired last year. That was the origins of why I would join an organization like the Urban League. Where else would I be? To be able to take the education that I got at Howard University, third generation, and then at Harvard Law School, where I first met Smitty, take that education and turn it to good for my people. No place better to be.
I see that. I had the pleasure of being in South Florida a few years ago when we had a tour, voter registration tour in 2018, and I met with the head of the Urban League down there, and she just phenomenal, you know. And I
Yes,
often say locally is where the work is done, you know, and that's
correct.
how you can
On the
really, you
ground.
know, judge what's happening locally. I know Newark is getting it done, you know, just personally, because I've been to the office, literally been to the office of the Urban League in Newark and witnessed what was happening there. And, you know, so kudos to the folks that roll up their sleeves every day to get things done. Edward Smith, Mr. Smitty, tell me about this Latimer Digital Equity. And I guess this is after Lewis Latimer, the great inventor.
That's absolutely right. And it was named after Lewis Latimer because, as was the case with many pioneers of African American descent, he didn't get the opportunity to benefit from or the notability with respect to the contributions that he made to science and engineering and technology in our economy, working with Alexander Graham Bell, you know, and working with, you know, some of the really the you know, what we recognize as the major industrialists of the early 20th century and 19th century. You know, he did a whole lot, and a lot of the things that we depend on today rest on his shoulders. And so we thought this was a time to honor him with a plan that is focused on Black America and communities of color. You know, Black America being principal among, but more than just Black America, communities of color, and those that are among the have-nots that frequently get overlooked.
Well, there are a lot of people that hate the communities of color, and they want us to focus on Black people because that is where the pain point is. But I respect what you're saying because I want everyone to eat. Me personally, I want everyone to eat. But and if this is the weak spot in our country, let's shore it up. So one of my biggest criticisms about a lot of organizations is that they talk a lot and there's a lot of reports, but not a lot done. So tell me, what does this Urban League Latimer Digital Equity and Inclusion Project actually do besides study? Like, tell me how kids that in Chicago couldn't get online to study or to take classes, how are they going to get broadband? How are they going to get connected? How are they going to learn about tech?
So thank you. Yes. So, you know, we recognize that you have a lot of organizations that put out a lot of reports. And the question is, where does it go? And that's a valid question. And the fact is that right now we're at a sort of a really critical junction point where, you know, the digital divide has been around for a long time. People have known about it as a problem for a long time. The Latimer report came out of, and the Latimer plan and this project has come out of the fact that, you know, that falls at the intersection of recognizing the digital divide and then seeing right now that, you know, with the murder of George Floyd, with the economic crisis and the COVID crisis that we're in, that things have become all the worse for African American communities, and that, you know, for those communities that have always been sort of, you know, among the last and the least in government consideration when it comes to health outcomes, economic outcomes, and educational outcomes, being on the wrong side of the digital divide was only going to make things even more precipitous. And so the purpose was to put together a plan to drive attention in Washington with about how we're going to be investing in these things. And we're seeing that happening right now. There are literally tens and hundreds of billions of dollars being discussed on the Hill at the White House, and many of those tens of billions of dollars looking to go towards broadband infrastructure and broadband adoption. And what we try to do is say, look, you know, there is a very large percentage of people in this country that are not connected today. And we're not just talking about people who live in rural areas. We're talking about people who live in urban areas. We're talking about people who live in near suburban areas. We're talking about people of color and communities of color that have been left out. And if we don't do what we need to do right now and put the, you know, the dollars where they count right now to bring those people online, then the economic, healthcare, and educational consequences for them are going to be far worse. And so what the plan is it's not just about what's on paper. It's about the action that we're taking with the Urban League and with other partner organizations to get out there and make sure that people on the Hill, people in the White House, people in the administration are recognizing this need and recognizing that we need to direct our money in the right directions in order to help make sure that we have folks who are included in the new digital economy that have thus far been excluded from it.
Well, what does that look like? Edward Smith, Smitty is here, as well as Joy Chaney, and you can follow her at Joy, JOI tweets on the Twitter, Joy tweets, and of course, National Urban League at NAT Urban League on the Twitters. What does that look like? Tell me how bad the divide is. What do the numbers say?
So the numbers tell you that right now there are about 93 million Americans in total that are not connected, that are not subscribed to broadband. And some of those are not subscribed because there are no networks where they live. The majority of those have networks where they live. About between 68 and 79 million Americans have broadband where they live. And a disproportionate percentage of that group that are not subscribing are African American and are Latino. Similarly, we see this with Native tribes. So if you look at the gap between those who are subscribing and those who don't, if you look at the white community at large, and you see about 72% adoption of broadband. If you look at the African American community, you see about 61% adoption of broadband. The Latino community is about 64%. So the gap is big, and the gap contributes to things that we've seen in very, very real outcomes here in America right now, thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. The homework gap that people talk about, the gap between those who are able to participate in education, that's something that existed before COVID-19. But then when COVID-19 made it such that the broadband was the only way that you could connect to school, then that impacted African American communities more severely. The telehealth gap. We've been in a condition over the course of the last year where, in order to receive health care, one of the principal ways, and the numbers went through the roof, was through telehealth. But if you don't have broadband, you're not connected. And in African American communities, health outcomes were already behind outcomes in the larger white community. And that only becomes worse when you don't have access to telehealth. Same with employment and job opportunities. And so the plan outlines different ways to address all of these sort of critical points. And when you talk about sort of like, what does that mean? It means we're having conversations with people in the administration. It means we're having conversations with people on the Hill. It means that we've got data to back up what we're saying, to push our points and say, this is where money needs to be invested to help these communities.
And Karen,
Joy,
can I jump in?
Yeah, I was gonna, yes, go ahead.
One of the things I would say is one of the biggest things we've been able to do is shift the conversation from just one around availability, right, where we're focused on rural America, to one about affordability, where we're talking about urban America, which looks like, at least the three people I can see on this call, it looks like us. And the three people who are in this call with me, besides me, it looks like us, right? We, through the Latimer Plan, through the work Urban League is doing and our partners, we have shifted that conversation. Because when Smitty and I started, it was looking suspiciously planted towards focusing just on rural America, and we've really seen a shift. And so we are very proud of the work that we've done in this plan.
So if I'm right now related to, or I know somebody, or it could be me, and I just happen to have like a free subscription to Sirius because I have a new car, but I'm living in an area where I don't have connection. How long would it take, for this conversation to turn into real action? How long will it take? And what does that even look like? Is it, are there 7 cities that we're looking at to start with? And then what does that look like for those 7 cities and those areas or those neighborhoods? What does that look like?
Well, we're going to bring you good news today. There right now is an emergency broadband benefit that's being administered through Smitty's former employer, the Federal Communications Commission. And they can go to fcc.gov, and right on there's a button that tells you about going and signing up to get emergency broadband benefit. So you can get about $50 per month applied to your monthly bill, and there are all the instructions are online, so that you can get help if you qualify and you need it to get help to cover your broadband. That opened up on May 12th, Smitty, am I right? I believe. And it has been going strong. More than 1 million people have already signed up. What Smitty and I are trying to do is make sure that continues. Because what happens if you get it during this emergency pandemic, and then a few months from now, you no longer have it. So we want to make sure that is continued in some way, shape, or form, right? And that is a benefit because in our view, having access to broadband is as essential as having running water and indoor plumbing and electricity. It is a civil rights and human rights matter in our view.
I just went on there, so it
Oh,
is
good.
accessible, and then you can apply now. And I was like, the irony is, if I don't have broadband, how do I get it? But everyone has a cell phone. Even if you have a prepaid cell phone, you can access it through your cell phone as well by going to fcc.gov. It's right there to apply. For more information, you hit there, and then it takes you right to where you can apply for the broadband. Emergency broadband, and getemergencybroadband.org is another place, which is actually on the site too at fcc.gov. So thank you for that. Smitty, you wanted to say something?
Oh, no. I was just nodding along and saying that the point is that, when the emergency passes for some parts of America, for some people in America, for a lot of people of color in America, the COVID emergency goes, but the real life emergency continues. And if they lose that benefit, then they're going to find themselves on the wrong side of that digital divide once again. And it's only going to be more necessary going forward than it has been to date. The importance of broadband going forward is only going to grow.
All right, Joy Chaney, thank you for that, Smitty. Joy Chaney, I give you a magic wand. You can fix this one problem. What would you do? I give you a magic wand. You can fix.
Yeah, magic wand. I would do two things because I cheat a little bit. I'm gonna get two wishes out of it. We would have lower broadband costs overall. I'm gonna be honest with you, and we would have a benefit that is provided permanently for Americans who cannot afford it. So not Smitty and that lovely home he has behind there, not you, Karen, not me, right? But people who really need it. People for whom this could not be something that they afford, so they would be able to have access, and that we would make it clear that you couldn't have a home, you couldn't have a place to live without access to strong, solid broadband. That's what I would have if I could do anything on this issue.
I want you to get a magic wand, because we live in a world where people they feel almost like folk need to suffer because I work to get here, so you should work to get here too. There's this notion that somehow that the hard work is the reason why you don't have the things you have, and it keeps us in this thing, because if you have made it out, then you feel like everyone can do it, as if there's not some obstacle, and I'm not giving people an excuse to not work hard, but I'm saying working hard in and of itself is not the reason why people, have and don't have.
Well, and there are a lot of people who work very hard that don't have. And the fact is, for those who only think about themselves, that when it comes down to it, having what amounts to about 30% of Americans not connected, and large chunks of the African-American community not connected, is actually hurting everybody. And it's having a negative effect economically, socially, civically on everybody.
Facts. Well, listen, kudos, and keep me posted, because I want a progress report. I want to know what action items got done. I want to know if that magic wand that's in the hands of Joy Chaney will actually bear fruit. And yes, listen, because we have to keep the pressure on everybody. The people you talk to in Washington, if they don't respond, come let us know. If they're not doing what they're supposed, because this is the bright sunshine that we need. No longer can people hide in shadows, talk about they're working on something. We need to see results.